Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Questioning a better way, one gracefully disruptive conversation at a time.
Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila. I am very excited to be with you today. This is a very poignant conversation and it's coming up in my world. So I always think, God, universe, Madonna looks out and then all of a sudden it comes through and we have a local entrepreneur in the house. So we're checking all the boxes. I am super excited to welcome Larry Lempka to the TNT mic. He is the founder of Los Rios Farms, and we're going to talk about traditional farming versus regenerative farming. He's local from Berthoud, Colorado. Before I welcome him on, I do want to read the background because the farming is deep in the blood for over 60 years, and it's his farm is right off the Little Thompson River in Berthoud. But I want to read the background because he's so intentional about this not only being in the blood, the schooling, but all of the communities and groups and all the initiatives that go around farming he's involved with. So we're going to lean in. He is a CSU alumni with a degree in agricultural business and a minor in farmhouse fraternity, was a member of the national champion meat judging team at CSU, was a proud member of the Future Farmers of America, where he held the position of state reporter in 1979 to 1980 and created the first year of the ongoing Colorado FFA magazine. He holds the FFA American Farmer degree. He is currently president of the Little Thompson Watershed Coalition, which was established after the 2013 flood, was a member of the Larimer County Agricultural Advisory Board to the County Commissioners, is a member of the Rocky Mountain Farmers Union, Colorado Coalition to Enhance Working Lands, Citizen Science Soil Health Project, and several other soil improvements and livestock associations. He has been awarded the 2022 Environmental Steward Award and Larimer County from Larimer County, and recently was selected to participate in Saving Tomorrow's Agricultural Resources Plus program to work to promote and improve agricultural land, where he was established a 4 out of 5 star rating in the initial year of the program. Larry, welcome to Turmeric and Tequila.
Well, thank you, Kristen. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Yes, I don't always read the bio, but I think it's really great that we see that the family farm is in the blood for over 60 years. So you're, born into this and you're around it, but also you've, as years have gone on, you've been really intentional about staying on the trend-setting tip of what's not only going on in farming, but what's going on in our world and the environment, which is an ever-present conversation. But before we get into that in the business, tell us a little bit about young Larry and how it was growing up on a farm.
Oh my. So how do you describe what you feel at a young age is how do I describe it? I guess it's just a calling. You start smelling the dirt, you smell the cows, you smell the horses. It's just one of those things that it just stays with you. And where does it come from? Well, I think it's a heritage kind of a thing. I didn't grow up to be a cobbler. I didn't grow up to be a baker. I grew up to play in the dirt. And so that's where I am. That's what I do.
That's amazing. Well, and was there pressure from the family to be like, learn the skill, learn the trade? Like this is going to be in your hands one day?
No, actually kind of the opposite. It was more a situation of my dad was actually an electrician for a long time, and he wanted to get back to the farm. And I was very young when we did that. And it was kind of, and I hate to say it, but I was kind of living his dream to a degree, but I had no pressure on there. I was, it just came natural to me because it just felt right.
That's amazing. Well, you also had some initiative that you wanted to go into because you studied this in school. And to be honest, I didn't even know this was the degree. This is ignorance on my behalf, but I didn't know it was something you could study and major in. To me, in my eyes, it was like just the way you learn it is the way you live it. I didn't know it was a thing. So did you know at some point you wanted to get into the farming business, having that be your degree and everything else?
I can't say as there was ever a switch that got tripped on, but it was, just growing up in the river, playing in the river as a kid. being called on to jump on a tractor at 6 years old to go move something because it's raining, and if you don't do it, it may not get in. And unfortunately, my mother wasn't thrilled with that. But hey, I'm on a tractor. I'm 6 years old, and look, I can do this.
Yeah.
Most people are skateboards or motorcycles or something like that. No. I was playing with tractors.
I love it. It's such a different world. I wasn't a city kid by any means, but we weren't anywhere close to a farm. I am a big advocate though, with life skills through sports or any sort of like purpose or like just getting your hands on things, being a part of a team or a cause. Do you feel like you got a lot of your life skills and the way you do things now from farming at an early age?
To a degree, but I participated in all those other things too. You go into a smaller school, you were on the football team, the track team, the basketball team, you were a National Honor Society, in the choir, in the band. When you're in a small community, that's just kind of what you do. You got to fill all the spaces because there aren't enough bodies to go around.
Yeah. Yeah. That what point did you take over the farm and it was fully yours? You were fully responsible for all of it.
It was kind of like somewhere in my high school years, my dad just kind of like, hey, you going to do this? And, he's like, hey, I went to the auction. I got this piece of equipment today. Is that going to work? And I'm like, sure. Okay. And he says, well, I got it in your name. You paid for it. I'm like, oh, okay. So, it was encouraged early, like I said, a lot of parents nowadays, we criticize them for trying to live vicariously through their kids. Well, my dad was doing that, but that was what I wanted to do. And I just didn't know it. He was showing me the way. And obviously it wasn't big equipment. I didn't grow up with a whole lot of stuff. I mean, it's not been handed down other than the farm itself, but we've earned it. We grew up in it. We matured through it. And it's farming's a hard business, so you got to work really hard to keep it within the family and keep the tradition going. And so that's kind of where I am right now.
I love that. Well, the pride that's there when it's built on the hands and the backs of so many of your family members and generations, and there's just a lot of pride in it. And the industry is ever changing. I don't know a ton about farming, but I really do try and keep my eye on what's going on. Obviously, environmentally, just as an American citizen, we try and keep our finger on what's going on politically ish. And health, fitness, and wellness enthusiasts trying to find out, how do we fuel correctly? Not only about the fuel, but like, is where our fuel is coming from, plants or meat? How is it being processed? As a small business owner, I care, well, where, can I get these sources of fuel from local situations? I did want to read one quick quote. This was from The Conversation. As an online article. I'll post this. And so everything is, coming from online, we want to be mindful of. But I'm always here for small businesses, being in that situation as an entrepreneur. But it says farming must change. About 20 to 40% of the global land area is degraded. Agriculture caused 80% of global deforestation in recent decades and compromised 70% of fresh water use. It is the biggest driver of biodiversity loss in land and contributes significantly to greenhouse gases. Here's the part I care about. It says global corporations such as Nestle, PepsiCo, Cargill, and Bayer dominate the food system. Some of 70% of the global agrochemicals market is owned by just 4 companies, and 90% of global grain trade is dominated by 4 businesses. This gives these corporations immense power. Do you want to respond to that?
Oh my gosh. We don't have enough time for me to respond to all of that, but no, I actually have a presentation that I put together, and I go to different organizations and that kind of thing. Been to some distilleries and breweries and that stuff, given the science side of things. And where we screwed up really, really bad in the United States is when we had the great land rush. We pushed our Native Americans off. We killed off all the bison, and then we sent all these people off to buy cheap land. You buy a quarter land for basically $12. And the worst thing we did was we put a plow to it. So we had this near perfect ecosystem, We sent all these people out there. Hey, go live your life. Well, we tore all that ground up, all that sod out. We chased those animals away. And so then we had the big dust bowl in the 20s and 30s, and that brought us around to the government setting up what we know today as the USDA. So they're trying to help us, but it just kept going. We had all these big industry, the chemical companies, the fertilizer companies, and of course they got with the universities. They wanted to give the universities a lot of money, so they did a lot of research for them. And basically, what we have done is we have gotten our soil to a point where it's like taking a 6-year-old, giving them 2 Mountain Dews, 4 Twinkies, and a bag of candy, and you have grand results for like an hour, but then you have this crash. And that's what we're doing with our soils. We're putting all this high sugar stuff into the ground, and it's just decimating it. And so I started back in college when we were studying biology and you were doing some of the soil classes and everything, starting to understand that to a degree, but the university was pushing us away from it. It was more towards the chemical and the seed companies and that kind of thing. And it's probably been 20 years ago that we've had a few I would say rabble rousers or renegades, but it was out of necessity that they went back and started looking at, hey, what am I doing wrong here? And you started taking all those inputs away and you started studying the ground. And we've got a little more than 6 or 8 billion little microbes in a cubic foot of soil. Well, when you start adding all those chemicals, it's just like that kid. You put a huge imbalance in there, and so then you get the heavy rains or winds or whatever, and we're just destroying the soil. And so that's been my concept, is how do we build the soil? And then when you do get that soil build up, then you've got these healthy microbes, which are making healthy plants, which in turn, we have animals that come in that are now becoming healthy. And so that's our food source. And so that's where we need to try and educate the public now, is where does your food come from? How is it being generated? What's the facts behind it? Let's know the truth rather than what's being told to us.
Amen. And that's why we're here on Turmeric and Tequila. It's 2 opposing things that can coexist. And so, we're really questioning that better way. We're always here to disrupt gracefully big food and big pharma, but mostly to empower the consumer, become conscious consumers, look out for yourself, start asking questions, understand how everything fits together. The more I learn, the more I see how much the Indigenous people had it so right, fueling spiritually, taking care of each other, land, tribe, community. And there's so many things that said it, it just continuously hurts my heart of how much we disrupted those otherwise near perfect systems. But I think you did a really great job of explaining that. It is a huge topic and there's a lot of details, but the main through line is questioning what you're eating, how you're consuming. I mean, consuming really anything, food, social media, whatever, but how that's really impacting you in the long game. Did you happen by chance to see the documentary Kiss the Ground?
Oh, absolutely. And then the sequel that's come out is Common Ground.
Oh, I haven't seen that one yet. Okay. Well, that's it. That's what I was going to say. Recommend this. If you're listening and you're like, I know a little of this about this, but I don't know a lot. Kiss the Ground is amazing intro to kind of like builds up history. It breaks it down. It doesn't even get too political into the business. It does a little, but it just gives you some background on why. And I think it's a great entrance into questioning a better way and how, who's doing what and how you can find the right sources that can really serve you and your family. So, and Nestle, PepsiCo, this isn't just fueling, man. Once you get into that, now we're getting into politics, and this is big money. Can you elaborate at all? There was a French guy, and I can't remember his name, but he was getting I think it was people from the UN, basically a ton of different countries to commit to address the agriculture problem, and US was not one of the ones that signed on to address anything. Do I have that mildly correct?
I'm not exactly sure who you're talking about, but that doesn't surprise me that the U.S. is pushed back, because we're dictated pretty much by our big business.
Yes.
I mean, and it's not a political thing. It's just kind of the way we've grown. Is everybody needs to be profitable. Everybody needs to do good work. And that's what the intention is. But the problem is that we've gotten so big that it's gotten totally out of hand. And so that's kind of why we need to come back, individuals like that. We need to come back and start, a ground source, moving back against all that. And we as consumers, and I'm going to include myself. I mean, I'm a consumer as well. People or companies like John Deere, they're, oh my gosh, they're throwing all their stuff at us like, you've got to take this. This is what it is. If you're not doing it, you're behind. Well, we got to push back a little bit and let's look at the big story. And so, getting those voices out there to, and agriculture listens to what consumers want. They test it all the time. We just have to have that voice.
Absolutely. And we talked about, and before we jumped on, another documentary, Game Changers, came out a while ago, and there was some bunk science on both sides. I do like that it facilitated some conversation about plant-based or whatever side you're on. I don't care. It's more just about the awareness of questioning what you're eating. I was good with that. And then I was just watching last night You Are What You Eat Twins, where they compare two twins, obviously with similar genetic makeup, and how one operates on a plant-based diet, one based on a meat, an omnivore diet. And it's 8 weeks, it's quick. Of course, there's some bunk science there, but again, facilitating this conversation about questioning, well, whatever side you're on, what's going on here. It was a good entrance to things. So I like that these questions are happening on the mainstream. But you were kind of ahead of the game. When you took over and leaned into regenerative farming, it wasn't a new conversation by any means, but it was still pretty forward thinking, and it's not cheap. Like, I mean, these are extra steps to go the extra mile. What made you want to do this?
I guess I just realized, and I don't know where it came to me. I can't pinpoint it, but you start looking. I guess maybe it comes from like the flood. The 2013 flood, that was a strange phenomena that, happened very locally to a lot of different people. And it was really, really dramatic and really tragic. What caused that? And then what were the side effects that went with it? And I start seeing, how, we're trying to form nature. We're trying to push a river where it doesn't belong. Or where it doesn't want to go. And so, you had destroying soil, you had trees that were ripped out, you had houses that were damaged. What are the effects on that? And so I started looking at it a whole lot closer, and it's like you don't realize what you step on every day and how big of a impact that makes. I mean, just like I said, if we've got 8 billion creatures in 1 cubic foot, and then we go and put down a highway, what's that doing? And we keep amplifying it. I guess we just need to be a lot more cognizant of, what's out there. What are we hurting? What are we gaining by putting our technology and our individualism out there? I mean, you look at it, and everybody wants to have this immaculate lawn, this green, wonderful lawn. You've got all these companies that come out there and, oh, here, let me fertilize it, let me spray it. I mean, we're just doing it even in our yards. Nonetheless, what we're doing out in the farm. So we've got to back up and look at the big picture and see what's going on. So for me, it was, what's happening? Why am I getting weeds? The big thing that hit me is we started getting kochia. We're becoming immune to the sprays we were putting on. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? And, you start doing some research, and then you found out, oh my, this is not good. We've got to look at it differently. So back up, and let's try and reduce what we're putting on, all those chemicals, all the fertilizers, because everything's unnatural. One of the stories that I learned long time ago is you put anhydrous ammonia into the ground. Well, it kills the ground for 6 weeks. It's actually longer than that. Yeah. If it's something that you can't ingest, why are you putting it in the ground? I mean, if it's harming us, what's it doing to all those other creatures that we totally depend on?
Absolutely. And I really applaud that, because it's when money's coming in and a lot of these bigger businesses are disconnected from the source. So it's easy to look the other way. Coming from marketing and branding, I felt a heavy responsibility to start telling the truth. And that's why we have this podcast. It's not all just smoke and mirrors, particularly in health and wellness, because there's a lot of filters and fakeness happening and there's a lot of good. But to step in and take responsibility where you feel it, I think is really important, not only for business and the long game play and just doing the right thing, but in that, like, for your soul. I mean, did it matter to you as a person that you were going to do the right thing?
Well, that's what we have to do individually. I mean, you have to decide yourself, or, do you want to be a taker or do you want to be a giver? And that's all the individual makeup. I guess a decent example would be, let's look at Tesla and EVs, not just Tesla, but EVs in general. People that own them think they're really doing something good, but then you have all these other people that are like, oh, no, it's really, really bad. Look what the batteries are doing. So it's all perception. But again, we need to learn. We need to all work together to try and figure it out. And I mean, we're individuals, and that's what, that's primary. Everybody's got to think differently. Otherwise it would just, I don't know what that would look like, but, but we have to have those different concepts, and we've got to learn from it.
100%. It is. And that's what, and again, two things that are like can coexist, and we can find a solution, even if we're not, seeing things eye to eye. There is always a middle ground. Well, so when you went to farming, let's just, so in case someone's not super privy to regenerative farming, can you break it down to us? What is regenerative farming and why it's different from traditional practices?
Absolutely. So the first thing we did was don't use the plow, because basically what you're doing when you use that plow is you're going 10, 12, 18 inches in the ground, and you're bringing up soil that hasn't seen the sun, that's not supposed to see the sun. So it's like throwing an atomic bomb into the soil. And so you're putting that up into the sun, and you're killing all those microbes, and they've got to reestablish themselves. So you're just ruining that atmosphere altogether. So the premise of regenerative is to try and eliminate as many steps across the ground as possible. And what we try and maintain a green living root in that soil at all times. Now, obviously, in the winter, we can't have green things growing, but let's look at your lawn. You still have something that's holding the soil in place. There's roots that are down in there. There's a lot of mycological man, I can't say it. You're going to have to help me out on that one, Chris. Microbiology that's working there, even though it's cold. And so we need to take care of that. So beyond that, I go in with a no-till drill and I plant in a cover crop, and we try and get as many different species as possible so that it isn't a monoculture, so that it gives the opportunities not only for that microorganisms to work, but also for the plants to work together. And then you can terminate it either, with a roller or a disc or something like that. We try not to hit the soil very much, but we try and emulate like what we had with the bison and the buffalo, and we run cattle on them very hard, compact that down and put them in place. And then I come back in and with a planter, put in my cash crop, whatever it is. And we try and stay away from the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium as much as possible. So we're looking at manures, chicken litter, that kind of thing. And what I'm learning now is trying to take compost, making compost tea, adding fungus to that, and we're spraying that onto the field instead of our chemicals. So we're putting in the nutrients that all those microbes need. And it's the biology, we're studying what all those little tiny creatures need, and that's what we feed, and that's what's going to generate better crops and better futures. So it's fewer inputs And so you might not get the kind of yield that you expect on your cash crops or what you're accustomed to. And so it's less cost putting everything in, but it's not going to be as much money coming back on the other side either. But that gives us a diversity too.
Right. Right. That's hard though. That's hard to know that less is going to come, even if less is going in investment smaller, knowing less is coming out is like a switch. However, again, there's that soul piece, doing the right thing, playing the long game. There's a lot that goes in. And the key factor in that, I really do believe, is conversations like this, getting on the mic, getting out there, speaking, doing all the things you're doing, so the consumer can understand when they see two products next to each other, they can be like, oh, Los Rios, I know these guys, I know what they do, I know this small batch, like I know the extra mile they go, and then I can trust that this is a cleaner, more humane, more natural, whatever it may be, selection. And I really believe our consumers, particularly our young humans, will select that. They'll spend the extra to support the local, or they'll be more conscious than I think we've been in past generations.
Well, and I attended the farm show this last week over in Greeley, and those were kind of the things they were talking about, the new studies that are coming out, and we're starting to look at the generational trends. And the younger people are actually saying, hey, we need to do this right. Yep. But they don't have the capacity to pay the the end producer, whether it be organic or regenerative grown, because we want to try and bring as cheap a food as possible to the consumer. But on the other side of it, do we want a whole bunch of chemicals in it? Do we want it GMO reacted? Do we want hormones? Do we want antibiotics? No, we don't. So we've got to try and figure out how to go about doing that. And when you start reducing your yields, the income that's coming in, it becomes a little bit more of a game to try and make it happen. You have to be a lot more careful. But the point of it is that we need to start looking at buying our food locally, and back to the day of things are seasonal. You're not going to be able to get strawberries in December.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to be able to have asparagus in October. Right. Those things, if you're buying locally and going with nature, and that's one of the things that we do with our cattle. It got moved to a lot of the ranchers in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Research told us that, you needed to move your calving into the middle of February, so you had bigger cattle in October and November, and that's against nature. Animals, we want to have them have their calves when it's warmer, when we don't have the blizzards, when we don't have to do all that extra effort. So we need to try and emulate what nature designed for us instead of trying to force ourselves upon nature.
Amen. Yeah. Well, and I told you a former client was a big meat company. We actually went to their farm in Montana and saw the cows, and man, these are big, intuitive animals, and it's a whole different thing again once you're on the source and you see where it's coming from. So as a farmer, I can only imagine. I mean, I'm bleeding heart for animals. I have 3 rescue dogs and would have 100 if I had more land. But when you're up close to person, you see how intuitive these animals are and the process of it. I still do eat meat. I've tried to cut back mostly because of the way they're processed and everything for these major situations. But as an athlete, some nutrients, if you buy the right stuff from the right place and it's done the right way, you really do. It's hard for me to hit a protein count, blah, blah, blah. So I'm on both sides, but the silver lining is finding that middle ground and finding the right places to get the right stuff and supporting the right causes. And that trickle effect not only is good for your health, it's good for the community. It's good, politically, it's disrupting some of these bigger businesses. Like some of these conversations and the way you can show up a store and vote with your dollar really makes a big difference. And I couldn't agree with you more about the accessibility and finding that middle ground to where, there's food deserts and everything else. We have to make this good stuff and a price point accessible and keep us open for business. So I can see how that's really a tough line to walk, but I applaud any business doing it the hard way, because you could just do it the easy way and keep going until it's not there, and just seeing what happens next versus planning it out and really trying to do the right thing.
So you hit a point there that I wanted to elaborate on a little bit. Just like we try and you go into a restaurant or something and you go to the salad bar and you're like, oh, hey, I want this, I want that. Well, there was a study that was done where they actually got and watched the cattle, and cows will eat different plants when they're not feeling just right. They'll go and they'll eat a specific plant, and then the next day they're going to go in and work on another one that they know in their bodies what they need. And so that's why it's so important that we get away from the monoculture, that we're not planting just one species, that we have a myriad of plants that animals can go through so that they can pick what they need. So we generate a salad bar for them to choose.
That's awesome.
And they know.
Yeah. I saw it firsthand. You could like touch their nose, and like, I mean, it is a spiritual experience. And again, I'm not here to say to not eat meat, but at very minimum, connect to what it is that you're eating, understanding the sacrifice that goes in and the giving, and just connecting to that process in any capacity. It doesn't need to be super woo and go to the next level, but just an awareness of what happens and the sacrifice, and one thing coming to your nourishment. It's a whole thing once you really get close to the source and see it firsthand. Tell us a little bit about the crops that you guys do have, or practices around the cattle that you do different.
Well, we talk about the crops. Obviously, I can't farm as many acres as I would like to, and because of the growth coming in on us, and our land is pretty finite where I farm. So I'm trying to figure out how to do more with less. And so the crops that I do, I have a pretty large garden. I've specialized in heritage tomatoes. I actually started raising the tomatoes right before COVID. Had things all lined up to go to restaurants, and then COVID hit. And so that was a huge pivot. And that's when I decided that maybe we need to start looking at selling direct to the consumer instead of, other means. So with the garden, I try and experiment a little bit with some stuff, find out what people really want besides those heritage tomatoes. And funny, turmeric came up on the list to look at the other day, and I'm like, maybe I need to try that a little bit. I don't know of anybody growing it around here, so I might have to do that. But a list of other things. There's kind of the homesteader movement where it's moving back to the heritage grains. And so I've raised some heritage wheat, the old varieties of wheat that came from Russia and Estonia. So like the Turkey Red, and they work a lot better when you're making your sourdough. And that's a perfect example there. I'll go off on a little bit of a tangent here. Is we've gotten so mechanized with wheat, for example, that they take that kernel and they could chop it up into so many different things that, we're seeing the celiac disease, and we're, a lot of other immune issues. Well, it's because we've more or less bastardized the wheat. We've crossbred it to fit our need instead of our environment. And so by going back to these heritage grains, people can actually go back and they start not having the same issues that they had by just buying Wonder Bread, Yeah. And so, sorry for that veer there, but other crops, I'm raising buckwheat, looking at doing some safflower. With the cover crops, we have a myriad of things in there that we plant, everything from rye, radishes, brassicas, legumes, all kinds of legumes, peas, and that kind of thing. I'm looking at growing some of the crops for actually Beyond Burger.
Okay.
And that comes down to yellow peas and some Milos and stuff. And then most everything that I plant is, can the cattle eat it? Can the livestock eat it? Can the pigs eat it? And if there's some toxicity there, I try and stay away from those plants. But that's what I'm trying to go to. And so I want to stay away from the common commodities, the main agronomic crops, because it's so hard to find non-GMO seeds in corn. I've been down the road of dealing with big business. I've raised sugar beets. We've raised onions. I've raised pickles. Yeah, pickles. And, Coors barley. I raised a whole myriad of things over the years, and big business, selling to big business, sooner or later, they turn on you. So it's best if, for me, to try and get direct to the consumer and people that are really conscious about what they want to eat and where it comes from. And, I open it up. If you want to come visit, you want to learn about it, I'm more than happy to help you learn.
I was just going to ask, do you have tours, or do you invite people up to come see the operation and whatnot?
Anybody's welcome. You can come down and set up a time where you can come see what's going on here. I mean, it's not glamorous by any means. It's not pristine. It's a working farm, and there's, we buildings that are falling down that we're trying to fix up, trees that need trimming, that kind of thing. So, but anybody who's interested in wanting to learn, I'm there for you. I want to help you learn. I want to help you understand.
I love it. And like I said, just going that my experience of being up close with the cows, or I'm like, you're very experiential. Go on a farm, go see it. I would love to come down at some point and we'll go live and we'll get some footage or anything. And we never need glamorous. We just always need real. So however it is perfect for us. But just to see it, connect with the roots, connect with, it's just seeing stuff growing fresh out of the ground is so different than when you buy it in the store, and you can taste the difference if you've ever,
yeah.
It's amazing. And again, you can just connect to how you're nourishing your body. And even if you're not into the woo and the spiritual, it really, it shifts you. It's different. You really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. And maybe that's one of the things that has me here is I've always eaten very, very healthy and not knowing it. Unfortunately, I don't grow a lot of fruit, so I have to go and buy those things. But, there's nothing better than making pickles or canning tomatoes, and you need to get back to your food. I mean, everybody wants to cook or needs to cook, and learn how to do it again. And I'm more than happy to share recipes with, it's like when people buy a half or a whole cow for the first time. They've never done it, and they don't understand that it's not just hamburger and it's not just steaks. You got to have the ribs, and you got to have the roast, and hey, there's liver and tongue too.
Yeah.
All those things go into it. So it's an education process. If people want to do that, if you've got the freezer space, hey, I want to help you, and then we'll help you go through so that you don't have a whole bunch of roast left over. There's nothing better than taking a good roast and slow cooking that thing on a winter day, and then tear that thing down and throw some homemade barbecue sauce on it. Now you got pulled beef to make your own tacos. It may have taken some time, but hey, bring the kids in, show them how to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the house smells good, and I've ordered as CrossFitters, we're meat eaters, well, for the most part, and it's more economical. And this was like a long before I really had a conscious conversation of how meat was sourced, some of these processing things that are just really brutal, and discussing the more I learned about it, I was like, well, we'll go local, we'll find a way before I ever buy something out of the store again. But connecting to it and having, like, when you get that shipment, even knowing that was like a quarter of a cow or a whole cow is, again, it kind of connects you to the sacrifice and what it is. So then when you're cooking it, like, I'd be very intentional not to burn it, not to waste it, because I don't want to waste a piece of the animal that was sacrificed, essentially. And again, you don't have to get this too far into the woo of it, but just that conscious mindset of like, this was a living, breathing animal. Now it's here, and it was sourced by someone really intentional, and it was a whole process, and you just connect to it a little bit more and you appreciate the experience. It's almost like grounding a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. And, I get a lot of people that, oh, I don't want to see the animal that that you're going to butcher, kind of a thing. Hey, whether they're 2 years old or they're 8 years old, they're all going to die.
Yeah.
So, they got one bad day, and
Look, I guess we're all kind of in that ship, though. Like, it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, nobody's getting out of here alive, right? So, they have their purpose, and it's hard not to befriend all of them. So, I my girlfriend, she wanted to go out and name a whole bunch of pigs and stuff. And I'm like, you really don't want to do that because, you get that attachment. I said, that's fine. Go do that. Name the chickens because, then they're going to be around a while.
Yeah.
So you don't want to do that. But man, I can't express to you the flavors that you can experience and getting back into cooking and doing it, taking the time to do it and know how to do it. And I think that's a lot of it. If people are intimidated, they want it quick, they want it now, but we need to slow down. We need to appreciate. And I think one of the things I heard a long time ago that, somebody traveled around the world and they came back and their friend didn't ask them of their experiences. They said, how was the food?
Yeah.
And that's what we need to connect with. And, like you do in your CrossFit, there's all this keto and,
Everything.
I,
CrossFit. We'll buy anything.
Just eat healthy. And if
Yeah.
you're eating healthy and you're getting food that is high in the nutrients, it's packed with the nutrients, unlike what you're getting in the commercially made stuff, it gonna make a difference in your performance. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you professional sports, particularly in the NFL, those players are very, very particular about the food that they eat and what goes into their bodies. And that's more of a science than anything else. And so, I'm happy to help those kind of people learn and find out what's really going on. And when you can have nutrient dense foods instead of just eating celery type foods, it makes a huge difference in your performance, even mentally, day-to-day stuff.
As I was going to say, it's so much beyond even performance. Like, even if you're not a high end athlete or you just want to, day to day, be able to chase the kids up the stairs or stay awake during a Zoom meeting, whatever it might be. So what you're eating in your stomach connects, your gut microbiome connects to your brain. And we haven't even talked a lot about mental health. But long and short, I always think money is the sell point for people. Like, well, I can't afford to do this, whatever. I get it. However, if you really take that macro picture, the better you eat, the cleaner you eat, the more intentional about the sourcing, the less you are in the doctor, the less you're relying on your insurance, the less you are, outputting to all these other expenditures. And it takes time to kind of put that, make sense, because you do have to pay a little bit more upfront for, clean eating and whatnot. However, long term, it's amazing. So even if you're not that high performer, this is really important for everyone. Like, get off these insurances and relying on any sort of systems, because at some point you got to empower yourself and look out for yourself, because we're sold a lot of messages.
Well, and a lot of people are kind of sticker shock when they first see what I'm asking for some of the product. But when you get right down to it, do you want to spend $9 a pound for a hamburger, or do you want to go to the store and buy $1.99 and get all the GMOs and the antibiotics and everything else that you're not paying for? The other thing that I saw the other day is that somebody hadn't had a Coke in like 20 years, and they thought, oh man, and they went and they bought that Coke, and they opened that bottle up and they drank it, and they said, man, it tasted like crap.
Yeah.
Well, that going back to that big business, when they were having trouble getting products, it's easier to add sweets. It's easier to add sugar, fructose, those kinds of things. And then, oh, wait a minute, we're having trouble getting that. So let's add a little bit of water. Let's see what that does. So the product quality that we're getting out of our producers are not what it used to be. And so we're going down that, and that's why you're seeing so much more immune disorders, diabetes. It's a lot. I challenge anybody, go to the grocery store, read the contents, and if sugar isn't in that product, email me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I won't get very many emails.
There you go. Well, it's disguised under fructose, sucrose. Like, you got to also know what you're looking for, but it's in there, even if it's like they try and disguise it under something else. But it's a kicker, and it's a shame that like our American government systems don't, regulate this better anymore. But I have tons of friends, like what you're saying, they travel internationally that have celiacs, and they can eat bread in Italy. They can eat pasta
Right.
in wherever. Like, it's totally, the food systems are so different. They're not having any reaction to these international cuisine. I mean, it's remarkable how a lot flies by in the American food situation.
Well, and kind of another example is, microbreweries. There are a lot of microbreweries that are getting only organic grain coming from Germany and Austria, and that makes a difference in the taste of beer.
Yeah.
You know, you have to start going back to those ancient grains, those antique grains, the heritage stuff to make the good beers. And that's why Budweiser, Coors, Millers, they just don't taste, you know they're mass produced, and they're trying to make money instead of making quality.
Exactly.
And
That's
that's where I'm at. Is I want the quality. I want to make sure. And if somebody gets something that doesn't taste right, come back, let's fix it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. And going that extra mile, again, I really have faith our young people will lean in. And once they understand the price point and the investment, which a lot of them do, I mean, it's pretty remarkable to see, under 25 spend $5 for a green juice or whatever. I mean, it's more lunch money than I had at that time. But they're way more connected than my generation was. So I love seeing that evolution, because then again, we're healthier humans, happier humans, mental health, like the ripple effect is massive on all levels. I would love to know anything else you want to share about the farm that makes you guys different from traditional practices, alongside the regenerativeness and just the intentionality that you guys do different, you want to share?
Well, I mean, there's quite a movement. There's not a huge number of farms that are doing what we're doing. It's a slow transition because it's ingrained in everybody, whether it be the banker or the chemical company. That's the way Grandpa did it, and so that's the way I'm going to do it. So change is sometimes hard, but then on the other side of it, change is mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
And so things that I do different, I don't farm like anybody else around me. And, lots of times I end up being the coffee shop fodder just because what the hell is he doing? And I like the mystery,
Yeah. Yeah.
that keeps it going. But I'm trying to learn how to use the products I have. Like I said, we have all these trees here. If I can make biochar, and then the compost tea. People throw so much food away. I'm trying to figure out how I can get those food scraps, come back, and let's make compost.
Mm-hmm.
Let's mix it all up and get that fungus out there. So it's a product that I can put out into my crops. But on the other side of it, how can I help other people? So that's what kind of differentiates me, is that I'm always trying to figure out what I can do to help the community. And I just need the community to come back and reciprocate. And, let's take the time. Let's sit down and talk about it. Let's go out and take some tomatoes,
I love it so much. I mean, this is why it's so great. And full transparency, Larry reached out to me and I was like, man, how the heck did you find me? Because this is cool. You don't necessarily have a lot of farmers wanting to come on the mic to talk about
No.
things, because there's stuff that they don't want to share. So this is, I mean, it's such beautiful, graceful disruption in an industry that really tries to close the door on a lot of stuff, because a lot of it isn't pretty. So when you get someone that is an outlier, that's like, here's the truth. I'm not going to tell you it's even perfect, but we're doing the best we can transparently to do the most right thing in the fastest amount of time, and pull back the cover and say, this is what it is. You just don't, especially in this industry, you don't get a lot of that. So I think it's big, and I think the world will see you. I think they'll see it, and I do think you need intentional communicators, like consumers, and need that community to show up. But I really believe conversations like this, clearly I'm biased, are powerful, because people are listening and they will take action to support intention.
Well, I think farmers are afraid to open up because there's so much stuff about how animals are mistreated. You invite somebody onto your farm, the next thing you know, they're taking a video, and then you got PETA showing up going, oh, you did this wrong. That there's a lot of fear in that. And I get it, and on the other side of it is the safety side of it. I don't want somebody strolling around over here and there happened to be a board with a nail on it and somebody steps on it. I don't want anybody hurt, but on the other side of it, I got to be careful with all my animals. I don't, I try and keep things so that they're not in danger as well. So, but it goes back to farmers don't want to open up because they're more fearful than they are willing to share.
I hear that. And in America, well, in the world, there's always going to be one. There's always, like my dad always said, there's always one turd in the punch bowl that's ruining it for everyone. So that's just the reality. But on the flip side, I really do, being a small business owner, know that, again, we can walk in. I'm not doing anything perfect. I'm doing the best I can all the time of whatever. And I have faith in our people that they can differentiate that, man, she's working hard. She's doing this. She might not say the right thing all the time. There might be a rusty nail. Like there's imperfections there. And I have enough faith that the right people will get it. They'll understand and they'll provide some grace for what I'm doing, for what you're doing, for anyone coming to the mic to tell the truth. Cause the truth always has some flaws.
Oh yeah. Oh, no doubt. Absolutely. I can't agree with you any further than that, but it's an experience. It's kind of hard. I have people that show up for 15, 20 minutes, an hour, whatever the case. They get a taste of it, but come and camp out. We've got coyotes, we've got eagles, we've got owls, there's all kinds of wildlife going on around here. It's not just what I'm doing. I'm trying to take care of it all. Yeah. And it's kind of hard when you're, the city's moving in on you, but, we do the best we can. And another thing I reflect your question about what I do differently. One of the projects that I did was that I put in a center pivot sprinkler, and that takes a lot of power to run that pump and run that sprinkler. And so solar was put into the building to offset that. And I'm also got a micro hydro unit where we're using the energy off of the water flow.
Cool.
So that I'm not pulling any energy off the grid. In fact, I'm going the other way with it.
That's amazing. Okay. Man, there is so much to know in this. This is science, chemistry, environmental, animal. I mean, there's a lot of hats that are you could go be a professor in any curriculum, really.
Well, yeah. I mean, the science side of things, I don't only have to go 2 steps and we can have a full science class, but then you've got to get into the finance side of things, the insurance. Yeah. I mean, yeah, farming is also, you're kind of your own doctor to a degree. And when you got animals that are sick, what do you do? And and every day's different. The adage that I really love, and I think it was Ben Franklin, I think is who said it, was that you do the same thing over and over, you're going to get the same results. When we have something good happen and I try and emulate that, I can't ever get it. So no, even though we do the same thing over and over, it's going to be a different result every year.
Yeah. Well, you're dancing with Mother Nature. I think that's always a different dance, man. You got to respect the larger power, but also how exciting is that? I mean, it might keep you awake at night, but it's a new day.
Well, that's the challenge. I wake up every day and look out and go, all right, what are we going to do today? My to-do list will never, ever get filled. There's no doubt about it. But it's like, all right, what can I accomplish today that is going to benefit me and make it easier tomorrow?
I love it. Yeah. That's attitude. I mean, metaphor for life. Apply that to any industry, and I think you will find success, but not only success, but also peace in what you're doing, which is really important piece of the mental game.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, so do you have any if someone's new to this conversation and they're not really, if they want to know a little bit about the environment, the political, the big companies, whatever, is there any sort of source? I mentioned a couple documentaries that you would say, like, go check out this website or go this, is there anything that you would suggest if people want to learn more and get into the minutia that they should dig into?
A lot of this stuff is, what I've learned from there's a lot of practitioners out there. Gabe Brown is a big one. Will Harris is another one, but I try and I put out a newsletter every week, and I try and update what it is that I did on the farm this week, but also I bring up something that bothered me. I think one of the things was we have to pay $1 a bushel, or I don't know, maybe it's 10 cents a bushel or $1 a head, that kind of a thing. And it goes into this big old fund that eventually goes to DC to try and lobby for us. Well, the example of that is like JBS. They do the same thing, only, you know, they're lobbying against the things I'm trying to do, but they have a lot more dollars.
Yeah.
So it's a huge paradox when, when the Colorado or the American Beef Council takes this money, they need to represent everybody, but how do they do that? And so that's just an example of a situation gone bad. They try and do it all good, but when you have the mass number of dollars that are coming in from the big companies, that's who they're going to represent.
Oh man, we might have to have a few podcasts on some of these angles, because this is like there's layers there. What form of action, what would be like one thing you suggest to people to make the right decision? Would it just be quite simply to shop local?
Absolutely. Do your farmers markets, do that. There's quite a few producers that are direct to consumer. Larimer County, Weld County, Greeley, Fort Collins, Boulder, they're out there. They're all over the place. They're Denver, Cherry Creek. Go to my website. There's a lot of information there. Also, Colorado Department of Ag, if you go on their websites, they have a ton of information about what crops are in season, when to buy. They have some brochures out there of local growers all around the state that you can go to. There's agritourism is becoming a big thing. I mean, you go over to Grand Junction, go stay at one of the peach orchards. Go. Well, I love just you go to you travel somewhere, whether it be Portland or San Antonio or whatever the place. I try and get out in the country. I want to find out what the farmers are doing there. It's nice to go to the restaurant and see what the food is, but get outside of the town, get with the people. Where are the locals? That's the thing that's fun. And that's how you tour Colorado. That's how you learn Colorado, is you get out there with where the locals hang.
I could not agree more. Well, just really quick, because I'm personally curious, walk us through just like a brief, walk us through your day. What do you eat like on a day-to-day basis?
Generally it's a couple of eggs in the morning for my chickens. I try and put a bunch of spinach in there that I raise. I make like a little breakfast burrito every day. A lot of times there'll be sausage that I've raised. Lunches end up being a lot of my leftovers, and then dinners is I'm just like everybody else. I want pizza, but I like eating out too. I mean, we've got a lot of good restaurants around, but pretty much every meal is going to have some sort of my meat in it, because I just, I like the taste. And I went, golly, where was I the other day, and went and bought a hamburger, and it was known for their hamburgers. And I'm like, is this a tofu burger? What? I'm like, golly, this is just horrible. And I was just, oh man, I'm like, you pay $13 for a hamburger, and you're like, man, that's the best they could do. I want to go home.
You can't be any more farm to table. Like, this is as good as it gets, is what you have on the daily. So that's
yeah. Yeah. And I, like when I raised onions and everything, I was talking with Robert Cicada, they were the biggest sweet corn producers. I was talking to him the other day, and we'd go out in the onion fields, and you pick up an onion, and I can just eat it like an apple. Wow. I mean, they're that good. And I mean, you go out in the garden, I eat sweet corn uncooked. you're picking raspberries and popping them in, peas. When I'm out in the field, the grain, when it starts getting a head on it and everything, just going, the food's there. You got to find it. I mean, you know, uh, pine cones. What was that saying? What was that commercial? Some parts are edible or something.
I don't even know that. You eat a pine cone?
I can't remember. Golly, that was way back in the 70s.
I bet it's low carb, so I don't know how that.
Well, I mean, you got the pine nuts in it, and
Okay.
Squirrels can't be wrong.
Yeah, well, there you go. We have the same dental anatomy. Like, is that possible?
Well, no, but no, I mean, hey, how did we determine way back when to open up an oyster? Who was brave enough to go and say, there's food in that?
Yeah.
I mean, how did we get from there? How did somebody look at a wild onion that was growing and go, man, that really tastes good, or garlic is good.
Yeah.
Rhubarb, how do you eat mushrooms? I mean, the list just goes on. How did somebody decide, oh, let's try that?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's a few bodies around.
I was gonna say there's always trial and error that you never know what's going to turn, but that's why like the diversity and like cultures coming together and sharing intel streamlines a lot of that process. And then, obviously not only just what we're eating, but like how we're doing things so we can do stuff better, which I think is really a cool thing. Is the farming community pretty collaborative amongst like other farmers?
It depends on the issue.
Yeah.
That's the one thing about farming, is that everybody is independent as they can be.
Yeah.
But I'll bring up that one subject. I mean, wolves is something that the farm community, we gathered around on that one fast, but unfortunately the voice wasn't very big.
Yeah. So it depends on the issue.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we can be as diverse as everybody, but the independence is the big thing. And so that's a lot of it that's hard to get over. And people try and they try and talk to farmers, and farmers and ranchers can see the BS from a mile away, And so when you have salespeople that they try and talk to you, not very gullible in this world. But again, nobody wants to change too much. So a lot of the farmers are not open to ideas. And that's one thing about the regenerative ag movement. It's a very slow process, and the majority of the people that are in it are smaller producers. There's not very many big producers in there, but those that are very vocal and very, very, they're doing well.
Oof. There's a lot of layers there. And I mean, I just really appreciate you coming to the mic and sharing some of this intel. I think it's amazing for you to step into the light, share it, but then also really just leaning into continuous evolution in what you're doing. Obviously, that's your daily practice that'll change you as a human. This daily evolution in general, whatever field you're in, I think that's just such a great message to constantly be evolving and trying to do the next thing and just being open-minded to change, because change is really, really hard, especially when your livelihood and your sanity and everything banks on it. But the reality is the only constant is change. So we've got to stay on that trend-setting tip of what's next.
Change is hard, but sometimes it's inevitable. And sometimes you have to do it, and you have to pivot very quickly. But, I look back at the originators of the regenerative ag movement, and a lot of them had to do it out of dire necessity. Is that they realized they were doing something wrong, and hail storms 3 years in a row, and we're on the brink of bankruptcy. And so what do we do different? And so they're the ones that are beating the drum the loudest of, hey, come and do that. And whether it's putting a whole bunch of different crops so that you're not a monoculture, it's the same thing with the enterprises. You have to diversify yourself so that you can offer pigs and lambs and chickens and vegetables. And I'm just a giant homesteader. That's all.
I love it. We'll definitely have to come out there and see it real life. I don't know if I would do a camp out and try to go toe to toe with an eagle or a coyote. We might save that for a different day. But to see the place and the garden and the animals, I think that would be really cool at some time. But I invite everyone to lean in to what Larry's doing at Los Rios Farms. Go check them out. He's got a great newsletter that we'll share with everybody. Larry, where do you find us? Hit us with website, Instagram, anything you want to share?
Yeah, losriosfarm.com.
I love it. Final question for you. I ask everybody, what is success to you?
There's nothing better than to have worked a field, cut a field of hay, and you look back and it's pristine, it's straight, it's all uniform. It worked great. There's nothing better than that feeling. Cultivate a field and it's clean. Unfortunately, those are the old days for me. But I guess the other side of success is for me to be able to share with someone and they get to experience what I know, and to see them light up. That's success.
Hey, I love that. Amen. I really respect this symbiotic relationship with the land, and then you get to see what you did, like this tangible thing that you can pass on and fuel someone. Like you just said, that interaction is really cool. That's powerful.
Oh, absolutely. And something else I want to throw out, if somebody wants to really learn, if there are some kids out there that, I offer an internship program.
Okay.
So youth can come out. I'm trying to figure out how to get, young farmers. Is very difficult for them to get into farming. And so if there's somebody out there that somebody knows that they want to learn more, or, they want to get their feet wet and they're not sure, come out and experience it. Let's figure it out.
I love that. I feel like we might have some people, or just some people that are really passionate about like the urban farming. I know it's two different things, but people are really getting into doing stuff on their own. So I would not be surprised if somebody hears this and you've got a kiddo running up there to learn the real deal from, one of the local best. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and start a garden. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
much. If we all eliminate a little bit of our lawn and put some other plants out there, we're going to pull some of that carbon out, and you can reward yourself with a ear of corn or a pumpkin or a zucchini. Zucchinis. If you fail at planting zucchini, you're not going to be a farmer. But
I I did a little I have two like 2x4 little above ground garden things, and it's been cool. And I did compost. Man, if you have a way where we can buy it from you, because it's disgusting and like we're doing it, but it's spinning the wheel and putting the peels and everything. It's cool, but it smells during the summer. It's a whole thing. I'm here for nature, but man, if you have a streamlined process where I can send you these and I buy it back from you or something, I'm all in.
I'm working on that. I'm trying to figure out how I can make compost that I use, and then people can emulate that and say, "Hey, I'm getting," and what it takes is community again. I'll need your leaves. I'll need your food, your garbage. Not your plastic, but your food scraps, that kind of thing. So I'm trying to get there. It's gonna be a little bit of time, but there's um, CDPHE, the Colorado version of EPA, and DOLA and CDA, Colorado Department of Ag. They're doing everything they can to help us to integrate those things into our system. So we're getting there.
I love it. Well, we're all about the community. So if there's some way we can help there, we'll obviously put up your contact info. Larry and I discussed a giveaway once this podcast comes out, we'll have it doing a giveaway. So look for that on our social channels. He's got a phenomenal newsletter. Lean into that. But there's tons of intel, and I really love like I said, the respect you have for the land and the process and the community. It's so much bigger than food and farming. Really is bringing people together and getting us more conscious on our daily, how we're nourishing, our, not only our bodies, but our souls. I know it's pretty cliche, but this stuff as you get older really starts to lean in. So it's good to be mindful of the whole human approach.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Larry, Yeah, I just want to thank you for coming on. Be sure to check him out. Larry, any final words from you?
The only thing is I have lots of ideas, lots of things that I want to try and do. If there's somebody that has an idea that in the community they want to do a community night or a farm to table kind of a thing, that we can do it here. I don't have the bandwidth to do it, but if other people want to step up and do that kind of thing, a pizza night or whatever the case, where everybody gets together and make their own pizzas, we'll figure it out.
Okay, I like all this. All right, I might have some wheels spinning on that. We'll stay connected. I like that. You never. Oh, I'm here. Creative partnerships is what we do. So, but the seed planted, no pun intended, and we'll see where that kind of.
Oh no, you got to have all the puns we can.
Yeah, no, seriously. Farming makes it pretty easy. But I appreciate your time and energy. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate what you're doing. We'll definitely stay connected. I know I have some fitness humans that are curious about the beef and everything else, but go lean into what these guys are doing. And I love that it's local. Let's go, Colorado.
Fantastic. Yes, Colorado proud.
Yes. Thank you, Larry.
All right. Thanks, Kristen.
Thank you for joining Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Tune in next time, and don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.